The first time Lila Whitaker held my hand, we were standing between two walls of corn tall enough to make a grown man question every confident decision he had ever made. There was dust on my sneakers, a smear of caramel on her thumb, from the apple she'd bought and pretended she wasn't going to finish, and a paper map in my back pocket that had become useless about 20 minutes earlier. Somewhere beyond the stalks, families were laughing. A tractor engine coughed. A kid shouted, "I found the pumpkin bridge," like he discovered buried treasure. And Lila, my beautiful, sharp-tongued neighbor from apartment 3B, looked up at me with sunlight catching in her dark hair and said, "Owen, I need you to be honest." I swallowed. "About what? Are you lost?" I opened my mouth. "Or are you doing that thing men do where they pretend the wrong direction is part of the plan?" That was how my life changed. Not with a grand confession, not with roses, not with some dramatic rain-soaked doorway. With a corn maze, a woman 4 years older than me, and the slow realization that I would happily wander in circles if it meant she kept smiling at me like that. My name is Owen Miller. I'm 23. I work as a junior graphic designer for a small outdoor gear company. And until that Saturday afternoon, my most intimate relationship was with my laptop and the cheap folding chair I kept promising myself I'd replace. I lived alone in a brick apartment building on the edge of Cedar Hollow, Pennsylvania. It was the kind of place where the laundry room smelled like dryer sheets and old quarters, the mailboxes stuck in humid weather, and everyone knew whose car made that rattling sound in the parking lot. Lila moved in across the hall in June. She was 27, a pediatric speech therapist, and the first time I met her, she was carrying a lamp shaped like a heron and arguing with it. "Don't look at me like that," she told the lamp as I came up the stairs with a bag of groceries. I stopped. "Is it winning?" She turned, saw me, and didn't look embarrassed. That was the first thing I liked about her. Most people try to smooth themselves out for strangers. Lila didn't. She just shifted the heron lamp against her hip and said, "It has terrible balance and no respect for women." I've known lamps like that. She smiled then. Quick, crooked, dangerous to a man with no defenses. For 3 months, we became hallway people. Not friends exactly, not strangers, something in between. She borrowed my step stool to hang curtains, then returned it with a sticky note that said, "Your ladder has trust issues." I helped her carry up a bookshelf from her car and she caught me reading the titles as we climbed. "Judging me?" she asked. "Only the one about mushroom foraging." "That one could save your life. Or end it. Depends how boring your weekend is." That was Lila. Warm without being soft, funny without trying too hard. She wore silver rings on 3 fingers, kept a tiny ceramic fox outside her door, and had the habit of listening like she was collecting the shape of you. I noticed things I had no business noticing. The way she tucked pens behind her ear and forgot they were there. The way she hummed old Motown songs while sorting mail. The way she never said, "I'm fine," unless she absolutely wasn't. But I was 23 and she was 27, and every time I thought about asking her out, my brain reminded me that she had a real career, matching towels and a plant by her window that hadn't died. I still owned 2 forks and considered grocery shopping before 9 p.m. a personal growth milestone. So I stayed safe. I made jokes in the hallway, I held doors. I admired her from the emotional distance of 6 feet in a shared recycling bin. Then the Harvest Festival happened. It was her idea, technically. I was taping a flyer to the lobby bulletin board for a local design workshop I was helping with when Lila came downstairs in jeans, ankle boots, and a rust-colored sweater that made the whole lobby look like it had been waiting for her. She paused in front of the flyer already pinned beside mine. "Corn maze," she said. I followed her gaze. "That does appear to be corn. Pumpkin cannon, hay rides, cider donuts." She looked at me. This town is really leaning into carbohydrates and controlled confusion. "You sound impressed." "I am. I grew up in Phoenix. Autumn still feels like somebody decorated the planet for my benefit." That caught me off guard. There was something softer in her voice, a little private. "You've never done a corn maze?" I asked. She lifted her chin. "I have done mazes." "Corn mazes." "I have navigational pride, Owen." That wasn't an answer. She narrowed her eyes. Have you done one? I should have lied. I should have said yes many times, professionally even. Instead, I said, once in 7th grade. I panicked and followed a man in a scarecrow hat for 40 minutes. Her laugh hit me right in the chest. Not a polite laugh, a real one. Head tipped back, hand briefly touching my arm like she needed to steady herself against how ridiculous I was. That touch lasted maybe 1 second. My nervous system treated it like breaking news. Well, she said, still smiling, clearly we need to redeem your family name. My family name is doing fine. Is it? No. That was how I ended up driving us to Miller Ridge Farm at 3 on a Saturday afternoon, telling myself it was not a date because neither of us had used the word date. Except Lila had put on earrings shaped like tiny gold leaves, and I had changed shirts twice. So if it wasn't a date, it was at least a date adjacent. A date standing in the doorway wearing a fake mustache. The farm was busy in that perfect October way. Kids with painted cheeks, parents balancing paper cups of cider, teenagers posing by sunflowers like the flowers had personally invited them. Lila bought a caramel apple and immediately regretted the logistics. This is not a walking food, she said, trying to take a bite without getting caramel on her nose. You chose it. It seduced me. Do you need help? She held it out. Are you offering out of kindness or because you want half my apple? Yes. She laughed and let me take a bite. It felt oddly intimate, sharing that ridiculous apple in the middle of a farm crowd, her standing close enough that her sleeve brushed mine. She had a tiny fleck of cinnamon sugar near the corner of her mouth from a donut we had also split, which meant she ate 3/4 and accused me of being slow. I wanted to wipe it away. I did not wipe it away. I was trying very hard to remain a civilized neighbor. At the entrance to the maze, a teenager in a yellow farm hoodie handed us a map. Exit closes at 5:30, he said. If you get stuck, just yell for staff. Lila unfolded the map with great ceremony. We will not be yelling. Strong words from a woman who just lost a fight with an apple. She pointed at me without looking up. You are here as moral support and emergency height. Do not become arrogant. Emergency height? You can see over things. I'm 5'11". Tall enough to be useful, not tall enough to be insufferable. I feel very categorized. You'll survive. We entered the maze side by side. For the first 10 minutes, we did well. Or at least we moved confidently, which is what most people mistake for doing well. The corn rose on both sides, dry leaves whispering in the breeze. The late sun slanted through the stalks in gold stripes. Every few turns, the noise of the festival faded, then came back muffled and strange, like the world outside had been wrapped in flannel. Lila walked ahead with a map, calling out directions like a ship captain. Left at the scarecrow. That scarecrow looks judgmental. He knows what you did in 7th grade. I told you that in confidence. You told me that while I was holding sugar on a stick. Nothing said near carnival food is legally protected. I liked how easily we moved together. The teasing, the pauses, the way she glanced back to make sure I was still with her even though there was nowhere else for me to go. At one intersection, she stopped so suddenly I nearly bumped into her. She turned. We were close. Too close for neighbors. Close enough that I could see a tiny freckle near her lower lip I had never noticed before. What? I asked. You're quiet. I'm absorbing the rural majesty. No, you're doing that thing where you think too loud. I looked away with a laugh. I don't think loud. You absolutely do. Your forehead gets organized. My forehead? It holds meetings. I should have joked. I usually would have. Instead, I said, I was thinking I'm glad you asked me to come. Her expression shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. The humor softened around her eyes. I almost didn't, she said. Why? She folded the map smaller, then unfolded it again. Because I wasn't sure if you were just being nice in the hallway or if... She stopped. My heart did something stupid and hopeful. Or if what? I asked. A group of kids burst around the corner behind us, laughing and chasing each other, and the moment broke. Lila stepped aside. I stepped with her, my hand touching the small of her back for half a second to keep her from backing into the corn. She went still under my palm. So did I. Then she looked up at me, and neither of us made a joke. That was the first warning. The second was when we realized the scarecrow we had passed 3 times was not, in fact, 3 different scarecrows. It was the same one, with the same crooked straw hat, and the same painted smile that suddenly felt personal. Lila stared at it. I stared at it. The scarecrow stared back like it had been expecting us. Well, I said carefully, he's persistent. Lila turned the map upside down, then sideways, then back again. Owen. Yes? I have news. Is it good news? No. Is it corn-related? Deeply. A cool breeze moved through the stalks. Somewhere far away, the tractor horn sounded once. Lila lowered the map and pressed her lips together like she was trying not to laugh. You don't know where we are, I said. I know exactly where we are. Great. We are in the corn, I laughed. She did too, and the sound loosened something in me. The whole situation should have been annoying, but standing there with her, lost in a maze that smelled like dry leaves and cider, I felt lighter than I had in months. Then she reached for my hand. Not by accident. Not because she tripped. She looked at my fingers, then at my face, and slid her hand into mine like she had been thinking about it longer than she wanted to admit. Her palm was warm. Her rings were cool. My breath caught so hard she noticed. Lila smiled, but there was nervousness in it now. Maybe, she said softly, we should stay lost. For a few seconds, I forgot that corn mazes had exits, maps, employees, operating hours, and liability waivers. All I knew was Lila's hand in mine. She had long fingers, a firm grip, and the kind of courage that looked casual only if you didn't notice the faint tremble under her silver rings. I noticed, because suddenly I was noticing everything. The small breath she took after she said it, the way her thumb rested against the side of my hand, the fact that she didn't pull away even when the silence stretched. Stay lost, I repeated, because apparently my brain had decided to become a parrot at the most important moment of my adult life. Her smile twitched. That was the part you heard? I heard all of it. I'm just trying to decide if this is a corn maze strategy or a confession. That depends. On what? On whether you panic and follow another scarecrow man. I laughed, relieved enough to breathe again. I was 12. He had confidence. He had a straw hat. Same thing in Pennsylvania. Lila looked down at our hands, then back up at me. You can let go if this is weird. That was the opening. The polite exit ramp. The neighborly way to turn the whole thing into a joke and pretend nothing had shifted. Instead, I tightened my hand around hers. Not weird, I said. Unexpected. In a bad way. In a my heart just tried to jump a fence way. Her cheeks warmed. I had never seen Lila blush before. It made me feel both powerful and terrified, which is probably how people get talked into buying motorcycles. Good, she said quietly. Then, because she was still Lila, she lifted the map between us with her free hand and added, Now lead us, emergency height. You're trusting me? No, I'm sharing blame. We started walking again, hand in hand, like that was something we had always done. Like we had not spent 3 months pretending the hallway between our apartments was just a hallway and not a narrow little stage where we performed being normal. Every few steps our shoulders brushed. Neither of us apologized. At the next fork, I stood on my toes, trying to see over the corn. I believe we should go right. You believe? Strongly. Based on? Atmosphere. That is not a compass. It's an emotional compass. Those are why people text their exes. I looked at her. She winced. Sorry, occupational hazard. I work with children, but adults give me most of my cautionary material. Bad texting history? Bad trusting history, she said. The line came out lighter than the words deserved. I slowed. We don't have to talk about that. I know. She squeezed my hand once. That's why I almost want to. We turned right. For a while, the maze narrowed. Dry leaves scraped against our sleeves. A little boy and his father passed us going the opposite direction, the boy carrying a pumpkin-shaped bucket and announcing, "You're going the wrong way." His father gave us an apologetic smile. Lila called after him, "That child may be management." "He had authority," I said. "He had snacks." Again, same thing in Pennsylvania. She laughed, but it faded into a quieter expression as we walked. "I wasn't fishing earlier," she said. "When I asked if you were just being nice, I didn't think you were. You are nice, though, annoyingly. You bring Mrs. Alvarez's packages upstairs when the elevator breaks. You fix that squeak in the laundry room door with something from your pocket like a little apartment wizard. It was WD-40. Wizard oil," I smiled. "You notice that?" "I notice more than I admit." That did something to me. Not the flirty part, though that helped. It was being seen in the small ways, the ways nobody posts about or compliments. I had spent a lot of my life trying not to take up too much room. Lila made it sound like quiet things still counted. "I notice you too," I said. She looked over. I pointed ahead, like I needed the corn to help me be brave. "You leave 2 inches of space on every bookshelf because you say books need to breathe. You talk to nervous dogs in the parking lot before their owners. You always carry stickers in your work bag, but not childish ones, good ones. Dinosaurs wearing glasses, bees with tiny briefcases." Her face changed again, soft and startled. "You saw those? You dropped them once by the mailboxes. I almost kept the bee. That was a reward sticker. I earned it emotionally." She shook her head, smiling. "You are much more dangerous than you look, Owen Miller." I wanted to say, "You have no idea what you do to me." Instead, I said, "That's what the Scarecrow man thought too." We reached a small clearing in the maze with a wooden bench, a barrel of plastic apples for some kind of children's clue game, and a hand-painted sign that read, "If you're stuck, don't worry, you're making memories." Lila stared at it. "That sign is passive-aggressive. It knows we're vulnerable." She sat on the bench and tugged me down beside her, still holding my hand. The bench was narrow enough that our thighs touched. Neither of us moved away. The festival noise was distant now. Not gone, just softened. The sun had shifted lower, turning the tops of the corn bronze. It would have been easy to pretend we were just resting, but our hands were still linked between us. "Can I ask you something potentially rude?" she said. "I work in design. I've had clients ask if I can make blue feel more Wednesday. I'm ready." She glanced at me. "Does the age difference bother you?" There it was, the thing I had been carrying like a rock in my pocket. I let out a breath. "Not in the way you think." "What way do I think?" "That I think you're too old for me." I looked at her then, because that deserved eye contact. "I don't, at all." Her mouth softened, but she waited. "I worry I'm too young for you," I said. "Not because I'm immature. I mean, I hope I'm not. But you have this life that feels built. You help kids say the words they've been trying to say. You have curtains. I still eat cereal out of a mixing bowl when my actual bowls are dirty. That's not youth. That's dish avoidance." "Maybe, but you know what I mean." "I do. And I didn't want to become some hallway mistake you regretted." Her fingers moved against mine. "Do you know why I asked you to come today?" she said. "To redeem my family name." That was the public reason. There was a private reason? She looked toward the corn path ahead, as if admitting it straight to my face might be too much. "You make things feel less heavy without making them shallow. That's rare." I went quiet. She laughed under her breath, but it was nervous. "Don't make that face." "What face?" "The one where I accidentally said something sincere and now you look like I handed you a baby bird." That is exactly what it felt like. "Well, hold it carefully." I smiled, but my chest ached in a good way. A shout rose somewhere behind us. A group of teenagers rushed past the clearing entrance, one of them yelling, "The couple checkpoint is this way." Lila's eyebrows lifted. "Couple checkpoint? Probably not legally binding." "I don't know. Farms have strange power." Before I could answer, a woman in a farm hoodie appeared at the far entrance of the clearing, clipboard in hand. "Oh, good," she said brightly. "You two are together, right?" Lila and I looked at our joined hands, then at each other. My pulse kicked. The woman smiled wider. "Perfect timing. We need one more couple for the maze challenge. There are moments in a man's life when he must make a decision quickly. Fire alarm, flat tire. A woman with a clipboard calling you and your attractive neighbor a couple while your hand is still wrapped around hers like evidence. Lila looked at me. I looked at Lila. The farm employee whose name tag said Kaylee glanced between us with the cheerfulness of a person who had no idea she had just tossed a match into dry hay. Maze challenge? Lila asked. Nothing scary, Kaylee said. Just a little couples activity. 3 clue stations, 1 silly photo at the end, and if you finish before 5, you get cider donuts. I felt Lila's hand shift in mine. Donuts. The woman had found our weakness. We're not, I started. Yes, Lila said at the exact same time. I turned to her. She lifted one shoulder, eyes bright. What? You heard her. Donuts. Kaylee beamed. Great. Team name? Team name? I asked. Lila thought for half a second. Emergency height. Kaylee wrote it down without hesitation. I stared at Lila. You named our couple team after my alleged usefulness? Alleged is generous. Kaylee tore off a small orange card and handed it to Lila. First clue is at the covered bridge. You have to answer one question there before you get the next direction. What kind of question? I asked. Relationship question. My throat dried. Lila's smile turned wicked. Wonderful. Kaylee pointed down the left path. That way, and hurry. The Bennetts are very competitive. As if summoned by name, a middle-aged couple in matching pumpkin sweatshirts power walked past the clearing entrance. The woman looked at our joined hands and said, Good luck, newlyweds. Lila called after them. Thank you, we're very fragile. I laughed so hard I almost tripped. She tugged me forward. Come on, husband, we have carbohydrates to win. Husband? Don't get sentimental, it's strategy. But she didn't let go of my hand. That was the thing. Lila could have dropped it after Kaylee walked away. She could have made a joke, brushed her fingers on her jeans, and restored the polite distance between neighbor and neighbor. Instead, she threaded her fingers through mine more securely, like the challenge had given her permission to do what she already wanted. And maybe it had given me permission too. We found the covered bridge after 2 wrong turns and 1 debate over whether a scarecrow holding a banjo seemed trustworthy. It did not. At the bridge, a wooden box held question cards under a little sign. Answer honestly, or the corn will know. Lila drew a card. Her face changed the second she read it. What? I asked. She handed it to me. What is one thing your partner does that makes you feel cared for? The word partner sat there between my fingers like it knew too much. We can pick another, I said. No. Lila leaned against the bridge rail. Sunlight fell across her sweater, catching in the gold leaf earrings. I can answer. My heart began doing that fence jumping thing again. She looked at the card instead of me. You notice when people are carrying more than they can manage, not just bags or boxes, other stuff. Her voice softened. The day my car wouldn't start, you didn't make me feel stupid. You just showed up with jumper cables and talked about raccoons stealing windshield wipers until I stopped looking like I might cry. I remembered that day. She had been sitting in her driver's seat before work, jaw tight, hands gripping the steering wheel. I'd thought she was angry. Then I saw her blink too fast. I didn't know you almost cried, I said. That was the point of the raccoon story, wasn't it? I had no plan. I was just afraid silence would make it worse. It didn't. She finally looked at me. You didn't. Something warm and serious passed between us. Not dramatic, better than dramatic. Real. I drew the next card because I needed something to do with my hands besides reach for her face. What is something your partner doesn't know about themselves? I groaned. These questions were designed by a barn with a counseling degree. Lila grinned. Answer, emergency height. I looked at her. She was still smiling, but less protected now. The teasing had opened a door, and I could either walk through it or pretend I hadn't seen inside. You think you're hard to approach, I said. But you're not. You make people want to be braver around you. Her smile faded. Including me, I added. The corn went quiet for a second. Or maybe I stopped hearing everything else. Lila's thumb moved once across my knuckle. Careful, she said, barely above a whisper. Why? Because if you keep talking like that, I might start believing this is more than a farm activity. I held her gaze. Would that be bad? Before she could answer, the Bennets came stomping over the bridge from the other side. Are you two answering questions or writing vows? Mr. Bennet said. Lila straightened so fast she almost knocked over the card box. Both. We're efficient. Mrs. Bennet laughed. They're cute, Frank. Let them be. Cute. The word should not have mattered. It came from a stranger in a pumpkin sweatshirt. But Lila looked pleased in a way she tried to hide, and I suddenly wanted the whole farm to misunderstand us. We moved to the next clue station, which involved matching childhood fall memories to directions. Lila's card said, pick the path that reminds you of your favorite October. I don't have many October memories, she admitted, as we stood before 3 signs shaped like apples, leaves, and moons. Not like this, anyway. Phoenix, I said. Yeah, we had decorative pumpkins sweating on porches and people pretending 88 degrees was sweater weather. She touched the leaf sign. When I moved here, my first autumn felt almost embarrassing, like I was too excited for something everybody else had already learned to take for granted. I don't think excitement is embarrassing. You've never seen me buy seasonal throw pillows. I've seen the fox outside your door wearing a tiny scarf. That is Hector, and he has a thyroid condition. I laughed, and she smiled, but there was emotion under it. Leaves, she said. Definitely leaves. We took the leaf path. It led us not toward the exit, but to the center of the maze where several couples had gathered near a small platform stacked with hay bales. A chalkboard announced the final challenge. Take a photo that shows your team's spirit. A teenage farmhand held a Polaroid camera. Kaylee spotted us and waved. Emergency height made it! Lila leaned close to me. If they make us do something humiliating, I'm blaming you. You said yes. You looked available. I was holding your hand. Exactly, very available. That line hit a little too close to truth. The Bennets took their photo first, back to back with exaggerated tough faces. Another couple posed with cider cups. Then Kaylee called, emergency height. Lila and I stepped onto the little patch of hay in front of the corn wall. How do you want to pose? I asked. She bit her lip, thinking. That tiny pause nearly ended me. Then she turned toward me and said, we should look lost. We are lost. Emotionally, Owen. I'm extremely qualified. She laughed, then moved closer, taking both my hands this time. Both. Like we were about to dance in front of strangers and scarecrows and God. My pulse roared. Kaylee lifted the camera. Cute. Maybe look at each other? That was all it took. Lila looked up at me. The maze, the crowd, the challenge, the pumpkin sweatshirt Bennets, all of it blurred around the edges. Her hands were in mine, her body angled toward me, and her eyes had stopped pretending this was a joke. I heard the Polaroid click, but Lila didn't look away. Neither did I. Kaylee's voice floated in. Oh my gosh, that one's going on the board. Lila blinked first, then laughed softly and stepped down from the hay. We may have oversold it. I followed, still dazed. Did we? She opened her mouth, but another voice answered before she could. Owen Miller? I turned. Mrs. Alvarez from our building stood near the cider stand at the edge of the maze center, holding a bag of kettle corn and wearing the expression of a woman who had just found her favorite soap opera filming live. Her eyes dropped to Lila's hand in mine. Then she smiled so wide it should have required a permit. Well, she said, I guess Lila finally asked you. Mrs. Alvarez had the timing of a church bell and the subtlety of a marching band. Lila's hand went tense in mine. Not pulling away, just tense. That mattered. Finally, I said, because apparently one word was all my dignity could afford. Mrs. Alvarez adjusted the bag of kettle corn in the crook of her arm. She was in her 70s, 5 feet tall on a confident day, and feared by every delivery driver in our building. Oh, don't look surprised, she said. The two of you have been flirting across that hallway since July. Lila made a small sound. Mrs. Alvarez. What? I have eyes. Kaylee, still holding the Polaroid camera, leaned slightly closer like the entire farm had become premium entertainment. The Bennetts had stopped pretending not to listen. A man buying cider turned his head. I had never wanted a cornfield to swallow me whole before, but I was starting to understand the appeal. Lila let go of my hand. That hit harder than I expected. Then she folded her arms, lifted her chin, and said, "For the record, hallway flirting is a recognized community-building activity." Mrs. Alvarez smiled. And asking a young man to a festival, that is agriculture appreciation. And holding both his hands on a hay bale? Advanced agriculture. A laugh went through the little crowd. I looked at Lila, and she looked back at me with color in her cheeks and defiance in her eyes. She was embarrassed, yes, but not ashamed. There was a difference, and I loved that she knew it. Loved. The word landed inside me with a thud. Too soon, maybe. Too large, definitely. But not false. Mrs. Alvarez softened because beneath the meddling and kettle corn she had a good heart. "I'm only saying," she said, "some people wait so long for permission, they miss the dance." Lila's expression shifted. The joke drained from her face. I knew somehow that Mrs. Alvarez hadn't meant to touch a bruise, but she had. Lila looked down at the dusty ground, then toward the maze exit sign beyond the cider stand. "I think we should go," she said quietly. "Yeah," I said. "Of course." Kaylee handed us the Polaroid before we left. "You still get donuts," she whispered, like she was offering emergency medical care. "Your photo was excellent." Lila took it with a polite smile, but her fingers were unsteady. We followed the exit path out of the maze without speaking much. The late afternoon sun had softened, and the farm looked warmer outside the corn, strings of flags over the pumpkin bins, a bluegrass band tuning near the barn, kids running with painted faces and sticky hands. Normal life continued around us, completely disrespectful of the fact that mine had tilted. At the donut stand, Lila stopped. "You don't have to stay," she said. I frowned. "What? You came because I asked? You held my hand because I made a bold, corn-related decision. Then half the county decided we were starring in a romance they could vote on." She tried to smile. "You can take your dignity and run." I lost my dignity at emergency height. I'm free now. Her laugh was small but real. I stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "Lila, did Mrs. Alvarez upset you?" She looked toward the orchard past the parking lot. A row of apple trees bent under red fruit, and a few families wandered between them with paper bags. "She wasn't wrong," Lila said. "That's the problem." "About us flirting?" "About permission." I waited. Lila turned the Polaroid, over in her hands. I could see the image side from where I stood. Her looking up at me looking back at her like the rest of the world had been temporarily canceled. "I was engaged once," she said. That one sentence cooled the air. Not because it sounded like competition, it didn't. It sounded like history she had kept folded away. "I was 24, she continued. "He wasn't terrible. That would be easier to explain. He was charming, smart, everyone liked him. And little by little, I became a smaller version of myself around him." My jaw tightened. She noticed and shook her head. No dramatic villain speech. No shattered plates. Just comments about how I laughed too loudly, how my clothes were too bright, how I made decisions too quickly. By the end, I asked permission in rooms where nobody had actually said I needed it. I looked at the woman in the rust sweater, the woman who named ceramic foxes and challenged maps and held my hand first, and my chest ached with the thought of anyone making her feel less. "I'm sorry," I said. "I left before the wedding. Moved here 6 months later." She smiled faintly. "Bought a ridiculous heron lamp as an act of rebellion. A noble bird? A structurally unstable bird. Still noble." She looked at me then. "I like you, Owen. That's not the scary part." My heartbeat slowed into something heavy. "What's the scary part?" "That I like how I am around you." Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. "I don't feel smaller. I feel louder." and I don't know if I'm ready to let someone matter that much again. The festival moved around us, but I barely heard it. I could have said the age difference didn't matter. I could have promised I was nothing like him. I could have rushed in with all the eager, clumsy certainty of a 23-year-old man who had finally been handed a door. But Lila deserved more than eagerness. She deserved the truth. I'm not asking you to hand me the keys to your life, I said. I don't even have matching dishes. That pulled the corner of her mouth up. I know you're 27, I said. I know I'm 23. I know that probably looks like a question mark to some people. But I'm not interested in being your proof that you can try again, or your rebound from something old. I'm interested in you, the whole inconvenient, funny, stubborn woman standing in front of me pretending she doesn't want a donut. Her eyes shone. I do want a donut, she whispered. I know. I'm very observant. She laughed, and this time it broke something open instead of covering it. I stepped back just enough to give her space. So here's my non-dramatic offer. We buy the donuts. We walk around the orchard. I take you home when you want to go. And if you decide today was just a brave little accident in a corn maze, I'll respect that. And if it wasn't, I held her gaze, then I'd like to take you on a real date. One where no teenagers name us a team and no neighbors narrate our emotional development. She looked down at the Polaroid again. Then she turned it toward me. In the picture, we looked like a secret finally caught on film. This doesn't look accidental, she said. No, I said. It doesn't. Lila took one step closer, then another. She tucked the Polaroid carefully into my shirt pocket, pressing it flat with her palm. Her hand stayed there, warm against my chest. You're thinking loud again, she said. What's my forehead saying? That you want to kiss me, but you're trying to be respectful. I am being respectful. I know. Her fingers curled lightly in my shirt. That's why I'm still standing here. My entire body went still. She rose onto her toes, not much, just enough, and stopped a breath away. So, she said softly, are you going to make me do everything first today? That was all the permission I needed. I cupped her face gently, giving her one last second to change her mind. She didn't. When I kissed her, it wasn't dramatic for the people around us. No music swelled, no apples fell from trees. Somewhere, a kid complained about dropping kettle corn, but for me, everything went quiet. Lila kissed like she had spent a long time choosing her courage. Slow at first, careful, then warmer when I didn't rush her, when my thumb brushed her cheek and she leaned into me with a small sigh that made my knees reconsider their purpose. I pulled back before the moment became less public than it should have been. Her eyes opened. For one dangerous second, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "We still need donuts." I laughed against her forehead. Romance is alive. It requires cinnamon sugar. We bought half a dozen and walked to the orchard with powdered sugar on our fingers and the Polaroid in my pocket like a tiny witness. We sat under an apple tree close enough that her shoulder rested against mine and split a cider donut without pretending the division was fair. This time, when a bit of sugar clung to the corner of her mouth, I looked at her. She smiled. Go ahead. So I brushed it away with my thumb. Her smile faded into something softer. Then she took my hand again, not for the maze, not for the challenge, not for anyone watching. For me. On the drive home, she rested her fingers on the console between us, close but not touching. Halfway through town, at a red light, I covered her hand with mine. She didn't pull away. When we reached our building, the hallway looked the same as always. Mailboxes, faded carpet, Mrs. Alvarez's wreath with tiny plastic pumpkins. But it didn't feel the same. Lila stopped in front of her door. I stopped in front of mine. Across 6 feet of hallway, the old distance tried to come back. She held my gaze, then reached into my shirt pocket and took the Polaroid. Hey, I said. Evidence tampering. I'm keeping it. That was our first official team portrait. It's going on my fridge. My heart kicked. Your fridge? With a magnet shaped like a speech bubble. She smiled, nervous and brave. Tomorrow night, dinner, my place, real date. I grinned. You're asking? I'm permitting you to accept. I accept. She opened her door, then paused in the doorway. Owen? Yeah? Her smile turned small and unguarded. Don't get less yourself just because I got scared for a minute. I felt that one deep. I won't, I said. She nodded, stepped inside, and before the door closed, I saw her press the Polaroid against her chest like it meant more than she was ready to say. The next evening, I stood outside Lila's door holding a bunch of sunflowers and a pie from the bakery on Maple Street because I panicked and decided one dessert was too casual, but two desserts looked like I was trying to get adopted. Before I could knock, her door opened. Lila looked at the flowers, then at the pie, then at me. You brought backup dessert. I didn't want the pie to feel unsupported. She leaned against the doorframe in a soft blue dress, hair pinned loosely at the back of her neck, and gave me the kind of smile that made the hallway lights seem less cheap. Come in, Owen. Her apartment smelled like roasted chicken, lemon, and rosemary. The heron lamp stood in the corner beside the window, still looking offended by gravity. On the fridge, held up by a yellow speech bubble magnet, was our Polaroid. Emergency height captured forever. I stepped closer to it. You really put it up. I said I would. People say things after corn maze kisses. She came up beside me, shoulder brushing mine. I meant it after the corn maze kiss. I turned my head. That's an official category now? The paperwork is extensive. Dinner was comfortable in the strangest way. Not because we were instantly smooth, we weren't. I knocked my fork off the table. She forgot the rolls in the oven until they had become geological evidence. At one point, we both reached for the salad bowl and stopped like teenagers at a school dance. Then Lila laughed. Not nervously, happily. There it is, I said. What? The laugh that got me into this. She looked down, smiling at her plate. Your trouble. I brought pie. Trouble with crust. After dinner, we sat on her couch with the windows open to the cool October air. She tucked her feet under her. I sat close enough that our knees touched, but not so close that I assumed anything. Lila noticed. Of course she did. You can kiss me goodnight before the actual goodnight, she said. I was pacing myself. You're 23. Your metabolism can handle it. I laughed, and then she leaned in first. That kiss was different from the one at the farm. Quieter, less surprised, more chosen. When I left that night, I didn't float down the hall like a movie hero. I walked 6 feet to my own door, let myself in, leaned back against it, and grinned like an idiot at my ceiling. For the next few weeks, dating Lila felt like discovering a new floor in a building I thought I knew. We still met in the hallway, but now she'd hook one finger through mine by the mailboxes. I still carried Mrs. Alvarez's packages upstairs, but now Lila would appear with tape on her fingers from work projects and say, "My boyfriend is showing off again." The first time she called me that, I nearly dropped a box of vitamins. Boyfriend? I said. She raised an eyebrow. Should I have said seasonal associate? Boyfriend is fine. Good. Try not to look like you won a county raffle. No promises. We took things slowly, but not vaguely. That mattered to both of us. Slowly meant Sunday breakfast at the diner where she drew tiny speech therapy exercises on napkins for a child at the next table because she couldn't help herself. Slowly meant me fixing her curtain rod while she sat on the floor, reading instructions aloud in a British accent for no reason except that it made me laugh. Slowly meant telling each other the truth before fear had time to build furniture. One night in November, while we were washing dishes at her sink, Lila went quiet. I nudged her hip with mine. Forehead meeting? She smiled faintly. Mine this time. What's on the agenda? She dried a plate carefully. Sometimes I still wait for the other shoe to drop. I turned off the faucet. She didn't look ashamed when she said it, just honest. I know you're not him, she continued, but my body remembers being corrected before my brain remembers I'm safe. I took the towel from her hand and set it on the counter. Tell me when that happens, I said. Not so I can prove something, just so I don't accidentally step on an old bruise. Her eyes softened. And you tell me, she said, when you start acting like you have to earn your place here by being useful. That one landed. Because she was right. I had been replacing light bulbs, tightening cabinet handles, offering rides, carrying things, as if love had to be invoiced through chores. I like helping you, I said. I know. She touched my chest with 2 fingers. But I like you when you're doing nothing too. Nobody had ever said that to me so plainly, so I kissed her there at the sink, with dish soap on my wrist and her hand resting over my heart, and something in me stopped trying so hard to be necessary. By Christmas, Mrs. Alvarez had appointed herself our unofficial historian. I knew, she said every time she saw us. You knew after the fact, Lila told her once. I knew before you knew. You also think the mailman is in love with you. He is respectful, Mrs. Alvarez said. In February, Lila came with me to my company's winter showcase, where some of my designs were displayed for the first time. I was nervous enough to forget how sleeves worked. She straightened my collar in the parking lot and said, "You are allowed to want people to notice what you made." I said, "That sounds suspiciously like wisdom. It's agriculture adjacent." Afterward, when my boss praised my work, I looked across the room and saw Lila clapping with both hands over her heart, proud in a way that didn't make me feel small. It made me stand taller. By the following spring, we stopped pretending that 6 feet of hallway was a meaningful distance. Not all at once. First, it was a toothbrush in her bathroom. Then my sketchbook on her coffee table. Then her extra cardigan over the back of my chair. Then one Saturday, while sorting laundry between our apartments, she held up one of my shirts and said, "This is inefficient." What is? Us having two homes and one life. I stared at her. She swallowed, brave but nervous. Too much? I crossed the hallway, took the shirt from her hands, and kissed her. Not too much, I said. So we found a larger apartment 2 floors up, with better light, a kitchen big enough for 2 people to burn rolls in, and a windowsill where Hector the ceramic fox could supervise the parking lot. The heron lamp came too. Against all odds, it survived the move. A year after that corn maze, we went back to Miller Ridge Farm. This time, I brought no map. Lila noticed immediately. "You learned nothing," she said. "I learned the important thing." "And what's that?" "That getting lost with you worked out pretty well for me." She tried not to smile and failed. We entered the maze hand in hand. The corn was high again, whispering in the breeze. Somewhere nearby, a child shouted about a pumpkin bridge. The same kind of golden afternoon light spilled over everything, and for a second, I could almost see the younger version of myself standing there, scared of being too young, too unsure, too unfinished. Lila squeezed my hand. I looked at her, 27 when we met, 28 now, still sharp, still warm, still the woman who made me braver without making me perform for it. In the center clearing, our old Polaroid had been pinned to a display board with other couples' photos from past festivals. The marker underneath read, "Emergency height, still lost?" Lila laughed so hard she leaned into me. I pulled a pen from my pocket and added beneath it, "Happily." She saw what I wrote, and her eyes turned glossy. "Owen," she said, "too cheesy?" "Terribly." "Should I cross it out?" She shook her head, then rose onto her toes and kissed me right there in front of the corn, the scarecrows, and whatever teenagers were probably judging us from behind a hay bale. A month later, I asked her to marry me in our kitchen. Not because kitchens are grand, but because that was where we had learned to be ordinary together. She said yes before I finished the sentence, then made me finish it anyway because she said she deserved the full proposal. She did. We got married the next October at a small orchard ceremony with cider donuts instead of a formal cake. Mrs. Alvarez cried into a napkin and told everyone she had personally arranged the whole thing. Honestly, we let her have it. And now, whenever Lila and I disagree about directions, furniture placement, or whether the heron lamp is charming or cursed, she takes my hand and says, "Maybe we should stay lost." I always say yes. Because getting lost was never the problem. The problem was thinking I had to know exactly where I was going before I could take someone's hand. Lila taught me that sometimes love doesn't arrive like a perfect map. Sometimes it shows up in a rust sweater, steals half your donut, calls you emergency height, and dares you to stop waiting for permission. And if you're lucky, you follow her into the corn and find the rest of your life. What would you have done if your neighbor took your hand in a corn maze and said, "Maybe you should stay lost"? And have you ever had someone turn an ordinary day into the beginning of something real? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.